Let's make bread great again. Who doesn't love bread and the smell of home-cooked bread? But the carbs. I don't want to consume so many carbohydrates, which could turn me into a big fat lady. I went on a keto diet, cutting out carbs for a couple of months, and I dropped 20 pounds pretty easy. But I kind of miss the breads and pasta. I like our traditional Friday night pizza and hot biscuits fresh out of the oven to pair with our Sunday pot roast. I typically bake cinnamon rolls for Christmas morning, and the family loves it, and hot dinner rolls for large family dinner gatherings. My husband also likes to put everything between 2 slices of bread. I take the time to make him a great omelet, load it with meat, cheese, and veggies. But he still eats a meal unto itself. We'll put it between 2 slices of bread. His belly looks like a big bread basket. I can't get him to stop eating so much bread. That's usually the first thing he goes for in the morning is a slice of bread. He'll put it in the toaster and cover it with cream cheese. He starts almost every day off like that. I had read that rye bread and sourdough are healthier breads, and that flatbreads like pita bread have less carbs, so we started incorporating those into our diet. Then a friend of mine gave me a sourdough bread starter. So I've been exploring the benefits of sourdough and studying up on how to use it and learning all the terms associated with sourdough. I have been reading up about the science of sourdough. By only mixing flour and water, letting it sit out on the countertop, it collects natural yeasts and bacteria from the air. Don't be scared of the word bacteria. They are both good and bad bacteria. The process of creating sourdough is a fermentation process. I've known for some time that eating fermented foods daily is beneficial to your health. Things like pickles, really anything that's pickled, and sauerkraut add good bacteria to aid in a healthy gut. Today, I want to share with you one of the daily routines that I must do to keep my sourdough active and alive. As you can see, I have 2 jars. This is the main starter, active and bubbly, and you can see it has doubled in size, so it is in its peak moment right now. And this is my discard, which I keep in the refrigerator. Right now it's about half full, which means I need to start using it. Now it's time to feed my starter. First thing that I need to do is I need to take out some of this, in other words, discard. So I'm going to, let me stir it up first. We stir it up and then we take out just about half of it. That's going to make my discard jar quite full. And then I'm using King Arthur's all-purpose unbleached flour. You don't want to use bleached flour. And you also want to use clean water, even filtered water. And water. And then we stir it up good. Make sure I get all the flour worked in. Now, I'm going to get just a little bit more water. It's usually recommended a 1-to-1 ratio. Sometimes, well, I was doing that for a while, but it got to be too soupy. So I kind of make my water a little less than the flour. Okay, yeah, I have to use my fingers, but they're clean, don't worry. All right. And we don't seal the cover, we just set that on top because we do want it to breathe. Put a cloth, I might actually make a cloth that you put on it. My hands are dirty, I'm going to wash them. Now I'm going to erase this. This is a dry erase marker. I put a mark the level that it is. That way I have a good mark to measure if it has doubled, because it will double. It seems like it only takes a few hours for it to double. But this way I can know if it's rising or if it's staying. If it's staying, it could be dying, and we don't want it to die. We want it to stay alive. Now, taking out some of the discard is very important to keeping the starter alive. We need to keep the starter alive because this is our main food for creating our sourdough baked goods. And I just keep my starter on the counter with the cover sitting loosely so I can see the green line. Now you may notice that since I have so many different flours, different types of flours for different purposes, I have separate jars. I got these jars from IKEA and I just put a piece of the paper bag. This is the all-purpose flour that I make my starter with. This is King Arthur's unbleached bread flour. And then that is gold medal bread flour. Sometimes I swap back and forth between the two to decide, is there any difference? Do I like this just as well as that? And then over here I have my all-purpose gold medal flour. And then up in the cupboard I have my whole wheat flour. And of course sugar and brown sugar. I like glass containers for storing things because you can always wash glass. And I don't like plastic. I'm trying to get my life rid of plastic. But we can do stuff with this. Now, one time I had a whole bunch of it, almost a full jar, and I just gave it to my chickens. Just like that, a liquid. They ate it. It's good for them too. It wasn't even baked into anything. So this is a process, and I do this sometimes once a day, sometimes twice a day. And I think warmer weather kind of makes it necessary to do it twice a day. But during the colder days, once a day seems sufficient. So you just have to adapt it to your environment. We are talking about a living organism. The American diet is so full of dead, nutritionless foods. A lot of processed foods contain preservatives and additives, which is not so great for your gut. Microwaved foods, for example, have less nutrition because of the radioactivity it takes to zap the foods. We got rid of our microwave years ago for that reason, but also because it was the most dangerous item in our home. My son formerly worked at a nuclear power plant, as did my husband. He had to wear a radiation detector to measure the amount of exposure to radiation. The one time that device spiked was when he was standing next to a running microwave. Please keep your children away from the microwave if you have one. We use a toaster oven to heat up or reheat foods instead, and we don't buy frozen dinners. Back to the blob, as my husband has deemed my sourdough starter, which needs food and water daily to be kept alive. It is very common that people give names to their sourdough starter. Yes, it's alive, a living organism in a jar, a culture. Every day, once or twice, I feed it a little flour and water. Just after I remove some of it, which is called discard, I place the discard in another jar, and I keep that in my refrigerator. I add a little to it each day as I feed my starter. You can use the discard for some quick same-day recipes, such as muffins, banana bread, pancakes, waffles, brownies, cookies. But the active starter is used for making other types of bread, such as traditional artesian sourdough breads and sandwich loaves. Many sourdough recipes are a 2 to 3 day process because it needs longer fermentation time. Sometimes they ferment on the countertop overnight or for an extended cold ferment in the refrigerator. Example, we typically almost always have pizza on Friday night, but I have to make my pizza sourdough on Thursday evening. It sits on the countertop overnight. In the morning, after a few stretches and folds, it goes into the refrigerator for the rest of the day, about a half hour before it's time to make the pizza. I then remove it from the refrigerator. This crust is by far the best ever pizza crust we've ever had. I did have to adjust the original recipe to fit my requirements, but oh my. When my husband and I sit down to eat pizza, we are so loving it more than we have ever liked pizza. Pure perfection. Keep my chopped bell peppers in the freezer. From the frozen state, they go right onto the pizza or in the omelet or soups or whatever I'm making. The way that we prepare our pizza today, the vegetables taste fresh, like they just came out of the garden.
Mommy, you make the excellent pizza. See?
Yay! I'm telling you, you just can't beat this. Pizza is becoming my favorite meal. Okay, my starter has more than doubled and it's very bubbly. So it's very active, and I'm going to use it for making a loaf of sourdough bread. For this project, I'm going to be using King Arthur's unbleached bread flour. Let's talk about carbs, because I'm sure you're wondering. A longer fermentation process makes the bread much easier to digest, because the lactobacilli in the sourdough culture break down complex starches into simple sugars, which are easily absorbed by the body. That means the breads and sourdoughs you consume have less carbs, less sugar, so you can eat them guilt-free. Isn't that wonderful? But that's not all the great benefits of eating sourdough. That long fermentation process makes the bread more easily digestible, so it's easier on your gut. But why is that? I will tell you. And this is a great dough mixer. Alright, it's a shaggy mess, which is how it's described. Alright, we need to cover it and let it sit again. Timer, okay, 0 minutes, 1 hour. Start. So we'll let that auto release for 1 hour. Then we'll come back to it to finish. It is now the evening. My dough is rising. And since I've used some of my starter, I need to feed it. And I fed it earlier today. Now I'm going to feed it for the second time. Flour and water. My hands are clean. Okay. My marker. I mark the bowl of my starter. And it'll be good for the night. We'll put the starter to bed because that's all I'm going to do with it for this evening. But this is rising and fermenting. I have to do some work with it in an hour, but after that hour, to the next thing, it'll be fermenting all night long. I will not be baking this bread until tomorrow. It's all in the science. A sourdough starter is a culture of wild, beneficial bacteria and yeast left to ferment. During the fermentation, the flour releases lactic acid and other gases that cause your sourdough to rise. In your typical store-bought breads, they have phytates in them. That is an anti-nutrient, meaning it prevents you from getting the nutrients from the bread, so all you gain is a larger waistline with very little nutrition. Plant foods, especially grains, are naturally high in anti-nutrients like phytic acid or phytates. Those make it difficult for your body to absorb the nutrients in that particular food. Whole grain bread, for instance, is full of minerals, including magnesium, potassium, zinc, and phosphates, but their absorption may be difficult. The lactic acid in sourdough neutralizes those compounds by lowering the bread's pH, making the nutrient more available for absorption, especially if whole grain flour was used. Research has found that sourdough fermentation may lower the phytate content by 70%. With a lower pH, it also increases antioxidant content and other nutrients. The fermentation of sourdough also lowers the gluten in breads. It does not remove it entirely, but lowers it. For some people, gluten may cause sensitivity and digestive issues, so sourdough might be a possible alternative. Plus, sourdough bread is full of prebiotics, an indigestible fiber that helps feed your good gut bacteria, thus increasing their population, diversity, and function. Yes, you have both good and bad bacteria and yeast, good and bad yeast in your gut. The one you feed the most wins the battle. So feed your gut healthy prebiotics and digestible nutrients by including fermented foods in your diet. The healthy bacteria that is formed in sourdough during fermentation helps produce the gases that facilitate rising without using baker's yeast. This ultimately reduces the risk of overgrowth of infection caused by yeast. I have had so much fun trying new recipes and learning new techniques in making a variety of home-baked goods. Not everything turns out right, but experimenting and learning the process is something that we need to go through. Sometimes I have to adjust the flour by using a different flour, and it's important what stage your sourdough starter is in. To learn more, I have saved links of information where you can learn all about working with sourdough on my Pinterest boards. You can find a link to my Pinterest on my YouTube channel homepage. My sourdough collection is a subcategory under Recipes to Try. There you will find a variety of recipes, sourdough recipes, and some blog posts that explain more details about sourdough, how it works, and just so many facets about it. The recipes that I have proven and really like, I marked them as favorites. They're denoted by a black star. I don't know why black. It should be a red star or a gold star, but for some reason on Pinterest they're black. I'm starting to develop a regular schedule of baking bread weekly, pizza on Fridays, and twice a week quick breads and other baked goods with the discard. I've modified my Sunday biscuit recipe to sourdough biscuits so I can enjoy great biscuits again. There's nothing like a hot biscuit fresh out of the oven, and I love watching the butter just melt into it. Such a treat. At this point, we no longer buy any bread products from the grocery store since I'm making them all at home. From sourdough starter or discard, I have made bagels, English muffins, donuts, cookies, pancakes, waffles, crepes, poke rolls, French bread, crackers, banana bread, gingerbread muffins, chocolate muffins, lemon poppy seed muffins, carrot cake muffins with cream cheese frosting, sandwich bread, traditional artesian sourdough bread, honey oat loaf bread. I tried a chocolate cake, but I didn't like it very much. But the brownies were awesome. Our favorite muffins were the zesty lemon and poppy seed muffins. I tried making croissants, which is a 3-day process, but I messed them up at the last part with my oven proofing settings, and I started baking them before they were fully proofed, so they didn't turn out as I should have. But I'll do that. I will try again someday. I will master it. I promise you, I will master making croissants, because we love croissants. I'm happy that I can provide healthier, better options for my bread-craving husband. It is far cheaper to make your own than purchasing all those things pre-made. Most of the time you only use flour, water, and salt. Most recipes don't have other ingredients in it. When you bake at home, you know what is in your food, with no secret ingredients that can be harmful, as so many store-bought foods have in them, and there's no or less sugar in them. The sourdough adds a wonderful, slightly tangy flavor to the breads. Try it. You might like it. Be sure to follow me on Pinterest. Welcome to the world of sourdough. We're going to be making bread like they used to do in days gone by. We can make bread great again. Thanks for watching.